Rory Gallagher and Cozy Powell. What a duo. My original idea was to pair up Rory Gallagher with Paul Kossoff. The two share a lot of similarities, very strong feeling, emotive, lyrical players. And I thought they go well together. But then I thought, why not go with Cozy Powell? Do something a little bit different, not two guitarists, but a guitar player and a drummer. And I think that works well. But they both started about the same time. Powell was born in 47. He was unfortunately deceased in 98. So at least he got to live to 50. And Rory was born in 48 and he was gone by 94 or 95 if I'm not mistaken. Spooky fact about each one of them, spooky story actually. I was listening to their records when the news came out that they were gone. Very sad. So I don't know if it happened, probably not on the spot, but when I was notified, when I heard it on the radio, I was listening to their records, and I'll mention it when I bring up those records. Cozy started about, they both started about the same time, but Cozy was in some small unknown bands. I don't even remember exactly what the names. To the best of my knowledge, they released nothing. So let's get going with Rory, whose first or almost first recorded work is this. I should maybe take the outer sleeves off. Take It Easy Baby. This is also released sometimes under another name, and this is work that he did just before Taste. Just before releasing the first Taste album. Oh Baby, Norman Invasion, How Many More Years, covers, Take It Easy Baby. So he was very young, and he was just starting out when this was recorded, and this was first released, if I'm not mistaken, in '72. There's many releases, so this comes in quite a number. Actually, maybe only two versions. Two, maybe three versions, slightly different titles, but the same recording. There is another one, London Invasion, that has more songs, but these are mostly studio, kind of live studio recordings, and it initially started coming out in '72, and they reprint and re-release them periodically from between '72 and maybe the early '80s. Be it as it may, the first official real Rory Gallagher or Taste release is this one, Taste, with Blister on the Moon. This is a fantastic record with Catfish, some of great work, really great work. Sugar Mama, like I told you, Blister on the Moon, Dual Carriageway, same old story. Just great stuff here, and I am lucky and fortunate to have a pretty nice German copy of this. I had another copy that was more beaten up, but I think was earlier when I was a kid. But anyway, this is it. This is a little bit less known. Another good record, in my opinion, not as good as the first one, Railway and Gone. That was a staple throughout his career. Yeah, On the Boards, Eat My Words. So good stuff, but in my opinion, this is not as good a record and not as good sounding as the first one. And then this is their farewell record. Rory was not happy with the band, or maybe some other things, management, the press they got, and this was released when the band was already broken up. So by the time this came out, the band broke up already. So this is 1970, if I'm not mistaken. I think that the live concerts were recorded in 70, and the record was released in 71, maybe. But maybe the whole thing happened in 70. But by then he was already appearing under his own name. So before we go on with Rory Gallagher's long and beautiful career under his own name, let's take a look at what our friend Cozy Powell is doing in the meantime. He apparently got himself a good name out as a session musician, and like I said, he was in some smaller local bands as well, and he got to work with none other than the late great Jeff Beck. And he bursts on the scene with this little baby, Rough and Ready. This record is just amazing. I remember this is one of those that we wore the groove smooth when I was a kid with my brother. I had to buy a new one. This is not the same one, obviously, but it was all busting out of the seams. As much as we wanted to take care of it, this is just track after track after track is great. The opener, Got the Feeling, Situation, I knew all of them. Jody, Train, each and every one is just a banger. All of the musicians here are on top of their game, just insane. Jeff, of course, with Max Middletown. Cozy's is insane here. So this is a must-have. Even if you don't like Jeff Beck in general and not a huge fan of Cozy's or anybody else, this record stands on its own. It's phenomenal. And then the follow-up to this one is this Jeff Beck Group. And it's not that it's a bad record. In my opinion, the vocalist has no business being on here. Not being in this group specifically, and this record needs no vocals. With possibly the one exception of Superstition, which is not even here. I don't know why I thought it was going down. Okay, you can make the case for Going Down. Why did I think that Superstition is here? Okay, Bad Memory. It's a good record. It's grooving pretty good, but something is missing. And I think it's more than just being the follow-up to a phenomenal record like the previous one, like Rough and Ready. And I think that it's mostly the songwriting. It didn't congeal together the way that one would expect from a band like this. They're all great. Max Middletown, Jeff, of course, and Cozy, as well as the bass player. Same lineup as the previous one. So I don't know. It's not my favorite, but I do listen to it from time to time. And so let's get back to Rory Gallagher, who by this time started to use only his own name, and he got a new band with Jerry McAvoy. Jerry McAvoy would stay with him forever, not forever, but till the end of his life, till he didn't record anymore. I unfortunately don't have the first Rory Gallagher record, which is really a very good record. Maybe not as good as the first Taste, but a very solid record there. The sound could use some upgrades. And then next up, he releases this one, Deuce. This is very famous, a big fan favorite, and they did improve a lot. Of course, it has Crest of a Wave and I'm Not Awake Yet. Very good record, and a very good example of what Rory was doing at the time, which is pretty much always great with Rory. Then he releases Live in Europe. I'm not so sure why this was released so early in the career, but it was. there is kind of a rumor or a commonplace in musical circles that at the time live albums were kind of cheap shots or just cheap attempts at making a buck, pressing out something, and recording technology wasn't at its best. This record could, in some ways, corroborate this idea or this claim. It's still the original lineup, and going to my hometown, of course, that's a good a good one, a perennial, as is Bullfrog Blues and so on. Not the greatest Rory album in my opinion. I don't play this record so often. I think the sound is off. Something is off with this record, and not to say that they're not playing well, but there could be there definitely are way better live recordings of Rory, both official and unofficial. Then of course we have another classic, Blueprint. This one has Daughter of the Everglades, I think Walking on Hot Calls, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, and another very well made, very well polished record, very well recorded, great songs, and another Rory classic when he keeps improving and polishing his guitar skills. Some very nice record all in all. And I'm an even bigger fan of this one, Tattoo. It of course has Million Miles Away and Cradle Rock, Tattooed Lady, Living Like a Trucker. So a bunch of classics, and Sleep on a Clothesline, right? It's pretty similar to Blueprint. You could say that in some ways this is a Blueprint number 2, but he's delivering the goods, and Blueprint is good enough to warrant a number 2. Then of course comes one of the classic of classics, Irish Tour 74. Many claim that this is his best work ever. This is a solid, valid claim. It has some extended jams and extended solos on several songs. Very good, very listenable record. And this definitely plays loud and proud, and 2 hands down, without any hesitation, beats out the previous live record, the Live in Europe. Who's That Coming? They brought out some other songs that they don't do so often. I Wonder Who. They do Too Much Alcohol, of course, as the crow flies. So, A Million Miles Away. Very great performances. Jerry McAvoy, as usual, more than delivers the goods. They play good, they play tight. The sound is not terrible. Could be better for the time and the technology available, but on the other hand, you get a very raw and very honest feel of the sound. So, before we continue with Rory, let's take a look at what Cozy is doing. And I forgot to mention, he released kind of a solo or a band that he put together, Bedlam. That's kind of a famous record. It's not the most common. It's available on CD. It's difficult to get copies, and the sound of that record is not all that great, but some people swear that it's got some of his best work. Be it as it may, in '75, after Jeff Beck and some other solo and session work, he hooks up with Richie Blackmore, and as they say, the rest is history. There is the very famous opening here to Stargazer. This is a great record. Ronnie kind of spoke very negatively about side B, about Stargazer and Night in the Black. He said that it's just the musicians trying to show off. To me, they're good songs, but anyway, great work with from Cozy, and overall a great record. This is a big favorite of mine. It's been for many years since I'm a little kid, and this is actually the copy that I got in the record store when I was, God only knows how old, 15, 14, 16, something like that. As is this one, On Stage. Okay, this is a very good live record actually. Have some great versions of several songs. Mistreated, of course. Dio gave it a whole new treatment, and all the banter that goes with Man on the Silver Mountain. So, and actually, it's funnily enough, they debuted the song "Kill the King," which would be kind of not really the title song, but the main song, let's just say, from the next record, Long Live Rock and Roll. Another super classic. This record sounded way better than what was coming out at the time. It sounded like records that were made several years later. Again, I guess that they had the money and the option to invest a lot in these kind of things, in engineering and equipment and things of that nature. But you got of course the incredible classic Gates of Babylon and Rainbow Eyes, and of course Long Live Rock and Roll, and Kill the King. So another banger from Blackmore, Dio, and Cozy. What a legendary lineup that was, right? One of the greatest guitar players of all time. One of the few singers who actually justify their existence. I'm not a huge fan of vocals in general. Certainly not the words. They're kind of stupid. And again, if we're talking now about Jeff Beck, I think that Jeff Beck has just the right amount of instrumental to vocal ratio. I just don't understand why all these great bands who are good musicians, why they employ singers. I guess to make sales, but the chicks love it. Next up, Cozy plays on this record. Again, we know the story with this. This is a Rainbow record that a lot of people hate. They say this is not real Rainbow anymore. This is where Blackmore started to get very commercial. The sound changes. Graham Bonnet comes on board. It's not bad. It's not a terrible record. Not my favorite Rainbow record by a long shot, but Danger Zone is a great song. So is Lost in Hollywood. It definitely warrants a listen every so often, but definitely not as frequently as the rest of the Rainbow repertoire. So this is what Cozy did at the time, mid-70s, early to mid-70s. And let's pick up with Rory after Irish tour. He releases Against the Grain, which to me was always kind of a weird album. It never caught me like a super Rory-ish. He plays, he's got some sizzling, great, feelful, good playing, but there is something about this record that I don't connect with too much. Again, you got Souped Up Ford, Bought and Sold, and I don't know, not my most favorite Rory record, but definitely not to be looked down upon. But if you're starting off with Rory, I would not start here. If you want to have the entire library or the entire discography, then you would buy it, but it's beyond it. It's the record's good, but it's something that it's difficult for me to put the finger on, but I never was super attracted to this record. And this one was a notable improvement. Ironically, there's a lot of people who tell me that this is fantastic, a phenomenal record. Maybe it's more in that direction than the previous one for sure. There's a lot of good stuff here. Barley and Grape Bag I like a lot. Moonchild, of course. Yeah, calling card is kind of like a slower, good tempo, a little bit bluesier feel to it. Out of the gun, so way better than its predecessor, but it still retains some of that elusive something that doesn't gel with me on that one. And then comes out this. This is my favorite Rory Gallagher period. Photo finish and the one or two that came afterwards. Actually, this is a very cool little 10-inch promo something EP or whatever you want to call it, extended single, maxi single, that came ahead of the record. Very good record. This one, this is the one that kind of, to me, there was a descent. You have Rory Gallagher and Deuce and Irish Tour, of course, and then Blueprint with Tattoo, and then he comes back with Against the Grain and Calling Card. Those two were a little bit less fantastic than, let's just say, the batch from the beginning. And which one would I go with? I don't think I'm gonna rank the albums on this one. This one is fantastic. Every song here is a banger, or at least most of them. You got Shadow Play, Shin Kicker, Brute Force and Ignorance, Mississippi Sheiks, Last of the Independents, Fuel to the Fires, Cloak and Dagger. So yeah, one after the other, just bangers. And on this one, it's got some, I think, live recordings, or maybe they just B-sides. They already have the Mississippi Sheiks on it, and some from the previous record, on the previous two records. So cool album. And before we go into the next one, I want to take a look at something pretty cool, pretty special that our friend Cozy is doing in these years, and it's a little bit less typical of drummers. And drummers are typically not band leaders, but Cozy actually releases 3 consecutive solo albums. Over the Top in '79. There you go. Again, this is 1979 equivalent of Photoshop. It's an X-Acto knife and a lot of wasted paper. And then you have Tilt. And then you have Octopus. Japanese press. Good records, all 3 of them. Good records, kind of a all-star lineup. And of the 3, this one is my favorite. Great record. This is not a straight-ahead hard rocker, even though it hits them very hard. Theme 1, Killer, all good songs, good compositions, good playing. You got here Jack Bruce guesting on the record, another Jack Bruce. Jack Bruce did the bass on most tracks here. And he's the only other consistent musician besides for Cozy. Actually, the title track is just Cozy with Max Middletown. And Donna Airy, I'm sorry, Max Max didn't play on the, I don't know why, it's Donna Airy. So it's just no, actually no. Jack plays bass here as well. So you got an actual bass, you got actual drums, and you got Don doing all the other instrumentation. There was no MIDI at the time. You have the very famous Gary Moore song, The Loner, ironically not played by Gary. So the first time that The Loner was released is on this record, and Gary didn't write it, Gary didn't play on it. Max Middletown wrote it, dedicating it to Jeff Beck, and Clem Clemson of Humble Pie plays on it. So that's what you have. Sweet Poison, also another good record. Great record, great favorite of mine. Very warmly recommended to anyone and everyone, whether you like Cozy or not. And this follows in the same vein. The sound is different. I like the sound on this record much less. This is a more straightforward rocker. And when I was a kid, for some reason, I remembered that I didn't really like this record, and then a while ago, a couple of years ago, I took it out. I gave it a spin, and I said, "Why didn't I like it? This is good." There is one thing that's annoying on it is that there is a guest vocalist whose name I forget right now. Who's pretty bad. He sings, I think, on Jekyll and Hyde, and maybe on Cat Moves, and the voice is really, really bad. I don't know who made him to be a singer or let him to be a singer. He shouldn't have. Bad voice, not bad enough to completely ruin those tracks, but definitely leaves a bad taste in your mind. So good, very, very listenable records. Most people who have this record will tell you that it's better than the one that came out afterwards. I'm not of the same opinion. And there is a song on this one and another song on this one. And on this one, it's called Dartmoor, and on this one, it's called Sunset, that Cozy Powell, I meant to say Gary Moore wrote for Cozy, and you can hear very evidently that it's trying to be his own The Loner, and it just doesn't work. I mean, I can feel the frustration on Live in Japan, Rockin' Every Night. Phenomenal Gary Moore live recording. Rockin' Every Night has an insane version of I Can't Wait Until Tomorrow. He plays that song Sunset, and he dedicates it to Randy Rhoads, who just died recently, and it doesn't go over well. You can see that he's trying to put in that energy and that feel and that super emotional feel that there is in The Loner, and it just doesn't work. I think that this was kind of like a thing that bothered Gary for a long time, that he wasn't able to come up with his own The Loner, and on several instances he even took credit for The Loner. On some editions, I think on Wild Frontier, it is credited to Max Middleton and him. It's bullshit. He didn't write anything on it. He put his imprint on it. He made it the most famous live and studio version, but he didn't write it. But anyway, that's what musicians do. Actually, there is a printed sheet. Okay, it's a Japanese record, so there is a printed something on the inside. But again, this is a very, very good record, and I disagree with its detractors. It's not that they don't have a claim. The record is very polished, very 80s, bright, big sound, big guitars, big drums, like you would expect. So a very, I wouldn't say cheesy, but a lot of people will tell you it's a cheesy production. And I don't remember right now if there is a vocal on it. But man, this one, each track is a freaking banger on it. You got Princetown, you got Formula One, the Rattler, that's the last song, 633 Squadron, Octopus, The Big Country. All the songs are great on this record. Even Dartmoor is kind of a little bit comical, right? Gary Moore trying to prove himself. Okay, the only text on this is in Japanese. I'm sorry, I forgot. I thought that there was something in English. So unless you speak Japanese and you can decipher whatever it says here, I'm sure that there's no. Well, there's something that looks like an article. So if anybody wants to translate this for us, honchong, that would be nice. But other than that, we are going to go back to Rory Gallagher and see what he's doing in the late 70s, which unfortunately were the beginning of his descent, but not yet music-wise. But it looks like he started to be a little bit impatient or a little bit unhappy with his life, with his career. I'm not really sure what, but this is my all-time favorite Rory Gallagher studio record. Overall, it's the next one. Stage Struck. Stage Struck is such a great record, such a hard, sizzling rocker. And in 1980, in my opinion, it has one of the best live productions. Kind of like, in some ways, like Unleashed in the East from Judas Priest, but I think even better, at least production and technology wise. Just very, very good sound, very clean for a live recording, and I hope and pray to God that it's not been butchered and played with in the studio, and from a guy like Rory Gallagher, who always had a top integrity, and not just only worn on the sleeve, but as far as we can know, it was genuine. I doubt that they messed with it in the studio. Stage Struck is a great record, and this is an amazing studio recording. Fun of all the songs here are good. Just literally each and every one is great. Obviously, you got Feel Big, you got Follow Me, Bad Penny, all of these famous songs, and they're all great. And what's his name, Jerry McAvoy, as usual, delivering the good, thundering out the good with great taste. What I really loved about Jerry McAvoy, to me, he was always kind of like a shadow of Rory. He did just exactly what was needed, not more, not less. Didn't try to push himself in the foreground, in the forefront, and it was just a very, very good bass guitarist. He reminds me pretty often of Neil Marie, who's also knows his place very well, and on one hand is not boring. He doesn't just do this one note like this heavy metal kind of thing, but actually adds a lot of spice and good taste to pretty much everything, especially live, but not only live, in the studio as well. So after Stage Struck come a little uncharacteristic pause of 2 years for Rory. So no studio record released in 81, and of course only the live record released in 80. And the next record is Jinx. This is another one that leaves people perplexed, and is considered to be the one that's post Rory Gallagher's classic era. I like the record, but it's a more hard rocking record than his previous ones. He is slowly changing direction. A good record. I actually love it very much. Ranked kind of in the middle of my Rory Gallagher ranking. Maybe I will do a ranking. I don't know. It's not really the point of these videos. That's my personal feeling anyway. The better known songs off of the record are, of course, Easy Come Easy Go, Big Guns, Devil Made Me Do It. I love that one, The Devil Made Me Do It, Double Vision, Loose Talk, and I like the title track a lot, Jinx. So a very decent record. You may make the case that the tendency already began with Top Priority, where he used a cleaner sound and cleaner notes, cleaner lines in his soloing, and the riffing as well. But definitely, to me, definitely doesn't detract. Right? You can't always stay just doing this. But anyway, a nice record, and definitely a new chapter in Rory's career. But I think I wanted to mention it here rather than later on, although it could go both ways. 84 sees Cozy Powell join the legendary Whitesnake, replacing none other than Ian Paice, who in the meantime went to rejoin Deep Purple. Another very famous record, and also a little controversial, if you want to call it that, with Whitesnake fans. Some Whitesnake fans consider this to be the last, or actually the first post-classic era. It's a little bit too hard rocky, too Americanized, and in the middle of making this record, they got an American producer or manager, what have you, someone who told them what to do and how to do it. This John Kalodner. I mentioned it in a different video, so no need to rehash it again. Another big Powell banger. I don't know if he has any credits on his songwriting, but he's cozy being cozy, and he's holding down the beat and the tempo like it should. It sounds good. And one thing I said about Coverdale, that he knows to bring the best out of everyone, and yeah, he's in tip-top shape here on this record. Gambler, I love that one. This is actually the Neil Marie, so this has got to be the American version that starts with Slide It In. Ironically, Slide It In is one of the songs that I don't like so much on the record, as it's slow and easy. But Love Ain't No Stranger, Gambler, like I said, Guilty of Love, Give Me Some More Time, Standing in the Shadows. Good record to me. I don't hate it. I like pretty much all Whitesnake records, but I love the classic era more than anything else. Next up, another interesting project. This one, as you would expect, this one is touch and go, and Keith and Greg Lake call Cozy to sit in for Carl Palmer and release ELP, Emerson, Lake and Powell. In my opinion, they could have taken out a whole bunch of other drummers, maybe Neil Peart or Mike Portnoy. Maybe they could have called Dave Weckl and tell him to change his name. Simon Phillips would have fit in here. Simon Phillips actually would have been an interesting contrast to Palmer. But anyway, the album definitely could have been better. It's kind of a strange, weird album. It's not a proggy in the sense that Darkest and ELP and Pictures at an Exhibition and those Brain Salad were. Learning to Fly is a good, definitely a good track. I'm gonna listen to this after I finish the video. The score is not bad, but it's The Bringer of War, Mars. It's an interesting record to have. It's definitely not a must-have, but it's an interesting listen, and it's worth listening from time to time. But it's not like it's gonna blow your mind away. Definitely. Then he plays on Gary Moore's After the War. Most of the record, the other drummer here is Simon Phillips, who played on Blood of Emeralds and one more track. Again, he's a guest musician here. He's not a full-time member, and I don't remember at the moment who toured with Gary on this tour. I'd have to look it up, but I'm almost positive that it wasn't Eric Zinger. And then, of course, Tyra with Black Sabbath. I'm sorry, Headless Cross with Black Sabbath. Big favorite among Cozy fans and Black Sabbath fans as well. Headless Cross is the second from the Tony Martin era, but the first one with Cozy, and this one also has Neil Marie. The other one, Headless Cross, had someone else, Lawrence Connell, on the bass. Both very, very decent records, but I love Tyre, and for that matter, The Eternal Idol better than Headless Cross. Good, very good, kind of the new Black Sabbath sound, the smooth 80s sound. And Tony was kind of catching up with the American sound of the 80s by the end of the 80s, when he should have already gone away from it, at least from a commercial perspective. Next up, Cozy joins one of my sweethearts, my all-time favorites, Peter Green. When it was announced that Peter Green is coming out of hibernation for a second time, I lost my freaking mind. And I couldn't believe that that Neil and Cozy were playing on this record. So you can imagine that this is a huge favorite with me. Interesting thing, this was released as an album like this, and what I understand is that this was recorded entirely live, not just live in the studio, but live with an audience. You don't have the audience in this record, but very good record. A lot of people don't like the post Second Awakening, if you saw with the Second Coming of Peter Green, or the third actually, depending how you count. Could be even the fourth, if you consider the end of the game to be his second coming. But they have some phenomenal version of Homework, Great to Stumble, just a great Going Down again. It's just a great record, whether you consider it live or a studio record. I love it, and I love Peter Green's work. But again, I'm too much of a fanboy to be able to criticize Peter Green for anything really. Then Cozy goes on to release another solo record, The Drums Are Back, which is kind of hit or miss. Has some decent songs here and there, but all guest musicians. I think that Brian May helped him out there a little bit with a couple. He was working a lot with Brian May actually in those days, and Brian May solo records, and no, actually that was the next one that he released. So the collaboration started like that. after Mercury died, he did Back to the Light, right, with the big song Resurrection, and Back to the Light he played on most songs. They're very good record actually, Back to the Light. I like that record a lot. And Drums Are Back are kind of hit or miss like this. So this brings us to the early 90s. Let's go back to Rory. I was kind of on the fence on whether to include Jinx with these three. Jinx, I think, realistically belongs more to Defenders and Fresh Evidence, or you could consider it as a bridge, right? You could say that it belongs kind of like with Photo Finish, Top Priority, Stage Struck, and then Jinx. It kind of makes sense, and it also makes sense in putting it with Defender and Fresh Evidence. Defender was always a big favorite of mine, was among the first Rory Gallagher records that I bought, and I love it a lot. And for some reason, it was kind of stuck in my head that Jack Bruce played the bass, or most of the bass on a record, which is not the case. He's guesting, and I think only on vocals, not on bass. But he might have contributed bass to a song or two. But it's still Jerry being Jerry, and Rory being a changing Rory. This is a Rory who goes in a direction from Jinx and taking it a little bit more into that direction. This is a more 80s E sounding record, more polished, like I said, cleaner lines in both in the riffing and the soloing, and maybe even the songwriting. So you don't have that grit, that edge, that bark that his previous music had. But it's great nonetheless. Continental Op is a big favorite of mine, and a lot of people cite it as as a big favorite from the record. So is 7 Days, so is Lawn Shark Blues. I love that record always, and Kickback City, Road to Hell as well. So it's definitely a record worth listening to. Die-hard Rorys who love the Rory mostly and only from the Deuce Irish tour, the first record, Rory Gallagher time, might not take so kindly to it. And especially to the next one, Fresh Evidence, which very sadly and tragically is going to be his last record. Again, that one makes an even bigger change. Kind of the record also is not as consistent as most of his records were. He's trying to do different things here, which, like I told you, I actually like, because I like to hear people do different things and unexpected things. Fresh Evidence is definitely a very unexpected record, and it's good. To me, it's a Rory Gallagher record, like all others. And I really give a lot of credit to Jerry McAvoy. You can see that my head is up his ass a little bit, but I love him very much, as a bass player, as a musician, and to some degree as a human being as well. Even though I don't obviously know him personally, but in all interviews and all interactions, live or otherwise, he comes through as a very very straightforward, very nice guy. Um, King of Zydeco, big favorite of mine from this record. Alexis, there's a Sun House cover here, Empire State Express, Ghost Blues, The Loop. So it's a very good record, but I understand people who are expecting just a Irish tour, Rory Gallagher, Deuce era, Rory Gallagher, not to like it. But unfortunately, here ends the sad saga of Rory Gallagher. Oh, okay. So the stories with me listening to them. I used to sometimes switch to the receiver to hear something on a radio, like news or whatever. There was a relatively decent music station that I could catch. There was kind of a clean line of sight from where they were broadcasting from to my window. And occasionally I would switch to the receiver, and I was listening to the first Taste record, Taste, and I finished listening to it, and I was going to flip it, and I listened a little bit to the radio, and they announced that he died, and I was freaking devastated. And that was kind of spooky. I was just middle of listening to them, and the same thing happened to me with Cozy Powell. I was actually listening to his first solo record, which I love very very much. Where did I put it? I can't find it. It doesn't matter. You remember what it looks like. Over the top, great record. Has the Loner and has Formula One, and theme song, killer. Just very very good record. And I was listening to it, and also either I just happened to open a magazine or maybe switch to the radio, and they told me that he died in a road accident, and it was freaking devastating. So that's the spooky story about those two records. Whitesnake, with Slide It In we did, ELP we did, Headless Cross we did, Tire we did, The Drums Are Back, Back to the Light, and after Defenders and Fresh Evidence, he rejoined Black Sabbath for another round. He wasn't on cross purposes, but he wasn't forbidden. Again, my two least favorite Black Sabbath albums. There's not much to talk to them. They were kind of, I mean, in those two records, great credit and great merit. They didn't try doing what was fashionable and cool at the time, right? The industrial punch, not punch, what was it called, grunge. Whatever you want to call it, thrash metal, death metal, new metal, punch, grunge metal, whatever. I forgot what it's called. There's some other names that they always come up with. There's that band with the mask. But anyway, they didn't try to follow the trend. That's my only point here. And great kudos to them for that. And then we did, of course, Peter Green's first Peter Green Splinter Group record, and he also worked there with Glenn Tipton of Judas Priest, who released a solo record, and much later on, like probably a decade or almost a decade later on, he released a second record, which I don't know what the original idea or intent was. Maybe they were just songs that they worked together, but those are the songs that he recorded exclusively with Tipton and John Entwistle from The Who. Baptism of Fire, very very good record. I like it a lot. And The Edge of the World also, which is those outtakes or whatever you want to call it. It's titled Tipton, Powell, and Entwistle. Both of them are not amazing, insane records. They have a lot what to improve. I mostly don't like it that the sound is very thin, and Glenn sings, and his voice is also very thin. He doesn't have a powerful voice. He actually has a fairly pleasant, fairly beautiful voice, and his singing is not bad, but it kind of just weakens the whole thing. And same thing on Edge of the World. But other than that, I don't have a lot of criticism for those records. Those records are definitely worth listening to. The title track, they have a killer cover of Painted Black. They have Left for Dead. They have a good number of very good songs, and same thing on on Edge of the World. You got The Holy Man. You got Stronger Than the Drug, which is a decent song. Crime of Passion, the title song, Crime of Passion. The title song, Edge of the World. So definitely two records worth having, or at least worth listening to. And Powell did all the drums on Edge of the World, and most of the drums, if I'm not mistaken, on Baptism of Fire. He also recorded Facing the Animal by the big, fat, condescending, arrogant, rotten Swedish meatball, better known as Penguin Mastic. Was a disgusting human being, and I don't like him, as you can see. And I listened to his records up to Fire and Ice, or the second, or the one that they recorded afterwards. But I haven't heard a lot of Yngwie after that. But I hear he's still doing some pretty decent work. Not super familiar with this record, but again, I'm pretty confident that Koze is doing a good job. He wouldn't have been hired if he didn't. And I think the last thing he did before he died was it's gotta be these. This was all in 97, 98. So Peter Green's playing the group, and the work with Glenn Tipton, and with Penguin Mastic, the rotten Swedish meatball, and then he worked on another Brian May solo album, Another World, on which he also played, I think, most of the drums, or the drums on most of the songs. Also a decent record, not as good as Back to the Light, but that was the last that we unfortunately heard of Koze, except of course from time to time someone finds some tracks that were recorded and put away for God only knows what reason. And unfortunately, Koze also gone in a car accident in 1998. So this is it for Rory Gallagher and Koze Powell. Ranking the albums, I'll kind of rank it, but I don't have a set 100% carved in stone hierarchy. But Stage Struck, my all-time favorite Rory Gallagher record. Afterwards, this one. Then you could definitely put in Tattoo and Blueprint, and then this guy, Photo Finish. You could do, of course, so we're doing all with Taste. So Taste is definitely up there above Photo Finish for sure. So this is my top Rory Gallagher. The bottom Rory Gallagher would be Against the Grain and Calling Card, and maybe the Live Taste and the second Taste record. And I would put Photo Finish kind of among the big favorites. Irish Tour, of course, very high ranking. Jinx, not far from the top. And then you have the middle section, pretty much everything else that we left out. Defender is very good. Defender, I would put it kind of on the same, or just a tiny little step below Jinx. And what else do we have here? These Blueprint and Tattoo, we said, okay, Deuce and Rory Gallagher definitely rank very high, higher than definitely than Jinx and Fresh Evidence. So that's pretty much what I have, you guys. And let me know if you have any other requests or any other kooky ideas to pair up musicians. And until the next time, rock on.